The scorched Arabian landscape. A virtually waterless desert where rain scarcely falls and animals endure blistering temperatures. But for 3 months every year, a remote region in the southwest undergoes an astonishing transformation into a lush, verdant oasis. Animals feed and breed as they make the most of this brief seasonal abundance. Many are found nowhere else on the Arabian Peninsula. Life seizes its chance to flourish during the surprising Arabian monsoon. It's June in the Sultanate of Oman. The summer heat is building across the Arabian Peninsula. Temperatures here can exceed 123 degrees Fahrenheit. Survival is a battle. But in one remote area, it's possible to find respite from the inhospitable climate. On the southern coast of Oman, close to the Yemen border, the Dhofar mountain range divides the vast inland desert from the coast. These limestone mountains are known locally as Jebel. The thin strip of coastal plain between the Jebel and the sea has its own tropical microclimate. Temperatures here remain a relatively balmy 90 degrees year-round. In the middle of June, the land here is still dry, dusty, and barren. But some residents don't seem to mind. Male repels weaver birds are hard at work building their characteristic hanging nests. Weavers are one of the world's most dexterous nest builders, constructing elaborate homes made of grass, twigs, and reeds. African in origin, rupels are the only weavers found in Arabia. Males develop a bright yellow breeding plumage to help them attract the less colorful females. The female picks her partner. She judges a male by the quality of his build. So if a male is to succeed, he needs to build a better home than his neighbor. Stage 1. Establish a firm, knotted foundation at the end of a branch. Weavers are the only birds in the world known to tie knots. Stage 2. Tie on long streamers of grass or reed, ready to create the basic shape. Next, tie the streamers together to create a simple hoop. This male is making solid progress. His structural hoop is complete. Now he builds up the walls, weaving the grasses in and around the main frame. The female casts a critical eye. The nest needs to protect future chicks from the rain that is coming. Small leaves are handy for filling gaps. His nifty beakwork catches the eye of the female. Or maybe she was checking out his neighbor. This male is already further up the property ladder. His dexterity demonstrates experience. Weavers actively learn how to improve their technique with each new nest they build. The neighbor has a nicer place now. But there's time. She's not moving in anywhere until she sees the finished pad. The weaver's fervent activity signals a change in the air. By late June, winds from the Indian monsoon blow up the east coast of Africa. They create turbulence in the Arabian Sea, driving nutrients up from deep water to the surface. This vital cold water upwelling breathes new life into the coastal waters. Above the waves, it cools the warm monsoon winds, causing clouds to amass over Dhabu's dramatic coast. A thick cloak of mist rolls inland, stretching 155 miles long and 15 miles wide. It hangs heavy over the escarpment and shrouds the coastal plain. This monsoon is surprisingly different. There are no thunderstorms or sudden downpours, just a heavy mist that only later will turn to rain. The mountains act as a barrier, trapping the new moisture. The landscape soaks it up like a sponge. Within days, the mist transforms the region. But this is just the beginning. Desert dwellers gather in their thousands. Many trekking from the arid land beyond the mountains. Herds of dromedary camels converge on the landscape as they begin to feast on the bounty of new green riches. Thanks to this seasonal change luring them in, the Dhabu region is the camel-producing capital of Oman. Camels are well adapted to cope with dry conditions and little food. Their large single hump is a fat reserve that keeps them nourished and hydrated through lean times. The monsoon feast enables them to fatten up and replenish this vital energy reserve. Camels are most commonly browsers. Woody shrubs and other raised vegetation make up 70% of their diet. But the carpets of new ground cover and wildflowers allow them to graze. Their thick lips protect them from thorny desert plants and help them pluck the softer vines growing on the ground. With so much food, they can afford to be choosy. Although they appear to roam freely, these camels are not wild. Arabian camels have been domesticated by humans for around 3,000 years. And these belong to Dhofari herdsmen. Some of these traditional tribal herdsmen move their animals seasonally between the desert and this new green pasture on the plain. The camels will feed here for the whole summer, roaming with their human tenders across the vast landscape. Although monsoons are more commonly associated with Asia, the word monsoon originates from the Arabic word for season. Here in Dhofar, this Arabian monsoon is colloquially known as Kharif. As June turns into July, the shrouding mist develops into rain. Light but persistent drizzle that lasts all day. Now that plant life is everywhere, invertebrates come out of hiding. These land snails avoid the harsh sunlight the rest of the year. Now they emerge from cover and scale the trees in great clusters to lap up the moisture. Caterpillars too are on the move. Some of these larval feeding machines can consume up to 27,000 times their body weight in just a few weeks. Others are out for a meal too. Birds get the benefit of the invertebrates' fattening. This shining sunbird prefers a sweeter treat. These energetic little birds are the largest of Oman's 4 species of sunbird. They're drawn to the nectar of a flowering hibiscus. Although they resemble hummingbirds, they lack the flight skills of their unrelated lookalikes. The long, pointed, curved beak reaches deep between the hibiscus petals, where its tongue, about 2/3 its total body length, can siphon up the nectar. There will be more blooms to come as the monsoon progresses. Back at the weaver colony, some of the nest-building males are nearing completion. The female will soon be able to inspect the nests and choose her mate. The master builder, who had an early lead on his rivals, is almost ready. His new spherical nest just needs a few finishing touches. The entrance faces down, allowing easy access for the weavers, but making it difficult for predators to reach. The male is now ready to advertise his new property. Hanging upside down on his doorstep, he flutters his wings to attract the female's attention. When it appears he has it, he makes way for her to inspect his nest and continues his campaign from a close vantage point. But she doesn't accept his invitation. She has options after all. Next door, his neighbor presents a greener alternative. Now the female has two offers. The master builder isn't about to give up. He draws her attention back to his nest. This time, the female takes notice. Finally, his upside-down tenacity pays off. He immediately increases his wing beats to maximize his chances to seal the deal. It appears to do the trick. A distinctive call signals trouble for the new couple. An African Diedrich cuckoo, here to breed during the monsoon, is a menace to weavers. Females will kick out the weavers' eggs and replace them with one of their own. The weavers must stay vigilant to these African seasonal intruders. Dhofar is home to many other African species. Some, like the cuckoo, migrate in to breed. But others have taken up residency. At a permanent spring, now full with crystal clear water, an African paradise flycatcher hunts for insects on the wing. Nearby, a grey-headed kingfisher keeps a silent vigil from its lookout post. Unlike most kingfishers, he's not eyeing up the fish beneath him. This kingfisher prefers to eat ground insects. But with none yet in sight, he may have to wait a little longer. It's not just the birds with African roots. On the steep slopes of the escarpment lives a small and rather elusive mammal. The rock hyrax, or dassie, as it's often better known in Africa. In the morning, the hyraxes emerge cautiously from their boulder homes. These shy little mammals are on alert for danger, which often comes from above. Aerial predators, particularly eagles, are a constant threat. Coast clear, one by one they emerge. The hyrax may look like a rodent, but its closest relative is in fact the largest of all living land mammals, the elephant. The rather unlikely relatives diverged from a common ancestor which died out around 50 million years ago. Colony life is all about safety in numbers. This colony has around 20 members. A sentry keeps watch for predators, whilst the rest of the colony relaxes in the sun during a rare break in the mist. If the sentry spots danger, it will raise the alarm with a sharp, shrill call. For now, all is well. But for small, meaty mammals, danger is rarely far away. By August, the effects of the Kharif are in full flow. A waterfall in Arabia is an extremely rare sight. 6 weeks ago, these cliffs were completely dry. Dhofar gets more rainfall than the rest of Arabia combined. Despite this, it's home to just one amphibian, the Dhofar toad. The rain triggers the toad's breeding season. Around the wet wadis, males are getting to grips with larger females. They'll need to hold on tight if they want to become fathers. As the rain persists throughout August, the Arabian camels munch their way through the new monsoon menu. Camels here fill the same niche as giraffes in Africa, browsing on leaves out of others' reach. They have the same number of vertebrae in their necks as the world's tallest land mammal. They also share a taste for acacia, although today an evergreen guari tree is proving to be an appetizing alternative. This messy eater moves its bottom jaw sideways to crush the woody branch, but doesn't need to chew it all that well first time round. Camels are ruminants, meaning they chew their food more than once. Each mouthful swallowed ferments in one of 3 stomach chambers before the camel regurgitates it as cud to chew again later. For now, though, there's plenty more where that last mouthful came from. The monsoon brings other unusual offerings for the camels. The inflow of fresh water invigorates coastal lagoons, making them highly productive feeding and fish breeding grounds. They mostly attract birds, like this egret. But camels aren't averse to wading in. A small herd dines out on an aquatic banquet. Camels are able to drink 53 gallons of water in just 3 minutes. But most of their fluids come from the food they eat. In a land where bodies of fresh water rarely exist, a lagoon like this can feed, cool, and rehydrate a herd. By late August, the weaver colony is a bustling hive of activity. Females are busy feathering nests that have met with their approval and refusing those they don't like. The novice builder from earlier is undoing all his hard work. Rejection is never easy. Males can make several attempts at a nest before a female will accept it. The master builder and his partner have been busy too. Over 2 weeks ago, the female laid her eggs. Now, new life emerges. 3 hungry beaks. Multiple beaks are good news. They mean there's no parasitical cuckoo chick to raise. But female weavers usually lay 2 eggs per nest. 3 just means more work for mum. Caterpillars are packed with nutrition, but you can only bring one at a time. And like all dutiful mothers, she's often faced with the less glamorous side of child rearing. The fed chick poops into its own disposable diaper, which the female removes to keep the nest clean. The young weavers will remain in the nest for 18 days. A ready supply of moths and bugs keeps them well fed and growing fast. While she's busy feeding the chicks, their prolific father has built a new nest and found another partner. Many weavers are polygamous. Male repels can partner up to 3 females at a time. Juggling the demands of dating, mating, and nest building is exhausting. There will be no let-up until Harif is over. Further up the escarpment, visibility is poor over the Hyrax colony. The sentry will find it harder to spot approaching predators while the mist remains. The adults are cautious, but venture out to forage. Hyraxes are predominantly grazers, eating grasses and other low-growing vegetation. But the monsoon also brings browsing opportunities. Commiphora, more commonly known as Abyssinian myrrh, grows endemically in this region. The small leaves are sparse among the spiny branches of the shrub, but provide valuable nutrition to the hyrax. Reaching the leaves, however, requires skill and a bit of daring. This one takes its time to balance. But another has clearly done this before. Rock hyraxes are well adapted for climbing. Their clawless feet have a rubbery texture, enabling them to clamber easily among their rocky habitat. The thin branches of the shrub are a bigger challenge. Hyraxes feed rapidly. Speed eating enables them to forage for only an hour a day. Less time in the open means less likelihood of getting nabbed by a predator. Like the camels, hyraxes have a 3-chambered stomach to help them digest their food. They're not ruminants. They don't need to chew their food twice, but bacteria in their gut help them to digest it as efficiently. An alarm call shatters the peace. The distinctive shape and pattern of an eagle soars over the escarpment. Varroa eagles breed here in the Dhofar Mountains. They are the biggest threat to the hyraxes. This one is not alone. Pairs hunt cooperatively. One attracts the attention of the hyrax, whilst the other swoops down unnoticed to grab its victim. The hyraxes hide amongst the boulders. But it looks as though someone wasn't fast enough today. Come September, the monsoon mist begins to clear, resulting in occasional bright days. Reptiles tend to keep a low profile during the wet weather, preferring dry conditions. But now the days are brightening, a flamboyant lizard begins to reveal itself. An Arabian chameleon. Oman is home to 103 species of reptile, but this is the only chameleon on the Arabian Peninsula. It lives only here in the monsoon belt. It spends more time on the ground than other arboreal chameleons. Out in the open it's exposed, but does its best to blend into its surroundings. Chameleons are best known for their ability to change color. This can provide useful camouflage. It can also help them regulate their temperature and communicate their mood. As it moves into cover, it becomes almost invisible. Each eye rotates independently, enabling it to look forwards and backwards at the same time to check for danger. Reaching the safety of a tree, it changes color again. Mimicking a branch will keep this quirky reptile out of sight should the eagles come circling again. Higher up in a nearby fig tree, a feast is underway. A Bruce's green pigeon makes the most of the ripening fruit. Carotenoids in the figs give this pigeon its bright yellow and green colors. The bird's plumage is at its most striking at this time of year, when the fruit is ripe. By late September, the Kharif fades into memory. The rushing water of the falls no longer echoes through the valley. The days become brighter and drier. The change of weather suits the sun-loving hyrax colony. Up on the escarpment, the eagles have flown off. but a stark reminder of a predator remains. As the sentry takes up its lookout position, the mammals take advantage of the returning sun. Rock hyraxes have poor thermoregulation. Like reptiles, basking in the sun enables them to warm up without using their own energy. Kharif's rains may be gone, but they have left a parting gift. Pups. Female hyraxes time the birth of their young to coincide with the monsoon. The babies have remained hidden in their bolder homes and emerge when food is more plentiful. The youngsters form a creche, close to the safety of a bolder bolt hole. Huddling together is another good way to warm up. Others are starting to find their feet, practicing their rock climbing skills. These two seem more adventurous than their nursery peers. The pair heads up to the myrrh bush, where the adults are feeding. But they won't be getting any climbing lessons from this one. Surely a lighter youngster stands a better chance. Young hyraxes develop remarkably quickly. They can run and jump within a few hours of being born. Learning how to balance can be more challenging. There will inevitably be more hard lessons to learn. Practice will eventually grant all the young hyraxes the skills they need for life in the colony. As October arrives, many of the nests in the weaver colony are looking a little disheveled. The master builder's nest is now empty. The fledglings remain close by, as does their mother. They're not yet old enough to fend for themselves. They still beg for food from mum. Nearby, a juvenile cuckoo has long left its foster nest. One pair of hapless weavers was cheated into raising it as their own. But now it must fend for itself. Despite the passing of the rains, the weavers are still breeding. True to form, the master builder now has a new nest. a new female, and new chicks, which are as hungry as their half-siblings. But the breeding season is drawing to a close, and he's starting to lose the bright yellow plumage that separates the weaver men from the boys. His mating colors will return next spring as he attempts to start family life once more. With the mist and running water now gone, the seasonal feast of lush vegetation will soon diminish. The last of the figs and flowers help build up fat reserves ready for lean times ahead. The enormous trunk of this African baobab tree stores enough water for it to survive until the rains return next year. As the grasses start to dry up, the dromedary camels begin to move on with their human herders. Their bellies are full, their humps are firm, each holding up to 80 pounds of fat. This vital energy reserve helps to sustain them through the long, dry winter that lies ahead here. For now, the monsoon is over. This herd will return to the desert beyond the mountains. Next year, the rains will come again, transforming the Dhofar Mountains of Arabia once more. Arabia, a land where reptiles rule. 300 million years of evolution have created the ultimate desert survivors. They're masters of saving energy, but can strike in an instant. They can make a small meal last a long time. Each creature has a way to cope with extremes. They change their behavior as the sun changes position in the sky. Here, the heat of the desert is no match for life in cold blood. It sometimes feels like mammals rule the world. There are well over 5,000 species, colonizing every corner of the globe. But in Arabia, it's a different story. At first light, a nocturnal spiny mouse is having one last forage before returning to his den. But it lives in a land where reptiles rule. A perfectly honed predator, the Clifford's diadem snake, chooses early morning to hunt. The 2-meter diadem has large eyes and chemical detection to track the mouse down even in the dim morning light. A tight squeeze is all it takes. Each time the mouse exhales, the embrace tightens. The victim suffocates. The bones of the diadem's skull are loosely attached with rubbery ligaments, so they can expand and move independently to walk the prey through the jaws. Reptiles are ectotherms and save energy by not heating their bodies internally, like a mammal does. It's one of the secrets of their enduring success. Snakes can survive on just 50% of their body weight in food each year. The mouse meal could keep the diadem going for months. In a land where resources are scarce, cold-blooded creatures have the upper hand. Little wonder they thrive in the deserts of the Arabian Peninsula. The peninsula covers 3.1 million square kilometers. Its interior is mostly desert, bordered by mountains on the east and west, and surrounded by warm tropical seas. Among the mountain ranges, valleys offer cooler conditions where vegetation can grow. The habitats are diverse, but reptiles have evolved to exploit them all. It's 6 a.m. in the hot, dry Arabian interior. The temperature is already 26 degrees Celsius. It looks barren and is almost devoid of water. But the harsh terrain is teeming with life. One 172 species of reptile live in Arabia. More than half are found here and nowhere else in the world. One of the biggest families, with 17 species, is the agamids. Like all reptiles, they start their day basking in the sun to warm up. Reptiles are like living solar panels, absorbing the sun's heat and using it as an energy source to power their bodies. Being ectotherms, or cold-blooded, doesn't mean reptiles are cold. It means they cannot regulate their temperature internally. Instead, they warm and cool their bodies using the environment around them. The toad-headed agama is specialized in making his living on the rolling sand dunes of the desert. Every morning he basks in the sun. It's vital if he wants enough energy to hunt. But there's no cover on the dunes. He's exposed. And even his perfect camouflage can't protect him from eyes in the skies. The eagle has impeccable vision. It's capable of spotting a desert hare from 3 kilometers away. Luckily, the agama has a disappearing act. Fast vibrations, the so-called shimmy burial, throws up enough grains of sand to cover his body. For the little lizard, it's dangerous to be out in the open. But the biggest of the agamids seems a lot less concerned as he begins his day. At 70 centimeters long, the dhub is the armored tank of the agamid world. He spent the night in a den underground and now joins the sunbathers. His body is armored with tightly packed scales made of keratin, like fingernails. Some are even further reinforced by bony structures called osteoderms. Reptiles were the first animals to develop scaly skin. This breakthrough gave them an evolutionary edge. It made them waterproof, meaning they could be the first large creatures to live on land. Keeping water out is as important as keeping water in. Even Arabia's sun doesn't dry them out. The dhub has a variety of scale shapes and sizes, including spiny bands on its tail that provide even more protection, something it might need. This is a monitor lizard, close cousin of the infamous Komodo dragon and the undisputed king of the sand dunes. At up to 1.3 meters long, it's the largest and most aggressive lizard in Arabia. But during early mornings, while the sun's still weak, all reptiles are taking things slow. Reptiles have colonized all the habitats of Arabia, even the sea itself. But as the sun rises over the waves, things seem to have gone awry for a pair of marine inhabitants. 2 Gulf sea snakes are stuck in the rock pools. These are among the most venomous animals on Earth, with the power to kill creatures many times their own size. But now they're in trouble. At high tide, they were hunting close to the coast, but the water levels receded. Now they're trapped, stranded in rock pools until the next high tide. Sea snakes originally evolved on land, but 6 million years of evolution have adapted them to a life beneath the waves. Like all reptiles, they must breathe air, but can hold their breath for several hours, thanks to massively elongated lungs that stretch almost the entire length of their bodies. Their flattened bodies turn their tails into paddles to help them swim. Most snakes have broad scales on their bellies for grip. Sea snakes sacrifice these for streamlining and are covered in smaller fish-like scales. They're the reptilian equivalent of whales and dolphins. Terrestrial animals so well adapted to the seas that they can no longer function on land. Without the ability to move quickly across the sand or strike at passing prey, they could starve or find themselves at the mercy of opportunistic predators. They have no choice but to wait for the tide to turn and hope the water gets to them before the gulls do. By 9 a.m., it's over 37 degrees. At this temperature, reptiles are in their prime. The monitor is now turbocharged by the sun. As his body temperature increases, so does the efficiency of his senses. As well as excellent hearing and eyesight, his long forked tongue flicks out to collect minute scent particles in the air. Each prong of the fork works independently. It can tell which side the strongest scent is coming from, giving it directional smell. He's on the trail of the dhub. But the dhub sees it coming. He's nicknamed the Spiny-tailed Lizard for a reason. He can inflate his body to wedge himself into the hole, with his tail sideways to lock him in. A spiny barricade that's too much for most predators to bother with. But the monitor has picked up a different scent. This is a rare find in the desert, an unguarded quail nest. But just when he's ready for breakfast, something else catches his eye. There's only one thing that threatens a monitor lizard, and that's another one. But the second lizard is smaller. It flattens itself against the dune, hoping to go unnoticed. Monitor lizards are all about personal space and won't hesitate to fight over resources. The eggs can wait. The threat's too much for the smaller one. honor defended, the bigger lizard can go back to breakfast. Many of Arabia's reptiles are territorial. Some literally turn blue at the sight of an intruder. There are no prizes for guessing how the blue-headed agama got its name. The males position themselves on prominent lookouts where they can watch over their territories. They're looking for females. When they spot one, they turn on the charm by doing push-ups until they're blue in the face. The color tones down at other times, but when they breed, they crank it up. Each male tries to intimidate its rivals by looking the fittest and most colorful. Changing skin color is a trick that some agamids share with a peculiar cousin found in the dense vegetation of the southern coast. There are about 200 species of chameleons spread throughout the tropics. But the Arabian chameleon is an endemic found here and nowhere else. One thing all chameleons have in common is their famous ability to change color. As this Arabian chameleon stalks through the branches, pigmented layers of skin, rich in expandable color cells, move over one another to change the way they reflect light, effectively enabling him to change his color. His varied wardrobe can be used for many purposes: to stand out and communicate with other chameleons, to blend in and go unseen by his insect prey, or to lighten or darken his color to reflect or absorb the sun to help with temperature control. His feet are unlike any other reptiles. He has the typical 5 toes, but they're fused into 2 bunches, making them look a bit like mittens. They're perfect for maintaining a grip on the branches. His arboreal life is further stabilized with a long prehensile tail. A lot of the comical chameleon's character comes from its extraordinary eyes. The tiny pinpricks between its eyelids can be rotated independently, enabling it to scan through 360 degrees. Its brain can interpret the information from each. It's like watching 2 different movies at the same time. Back out on the sand dunes, the mercury is climbing. The toad-headed agama lifts himself standing on tiptoes. This allows cooling air to circulate around his body and minimizes contact with the hot sand. The dhub spent the cooler hours of the morning using his chisel-shaped teeth to clip tough desert vegetation. But time's running out for his veggie brunch. By late morning, the air temperature can soar to a scalding 49 degrees. But the baked sand is hotter, nearly 64 degrees to the touch. Too hot for reptiles. This heat compromises their endurance. Even the desert-dwelling dhub retreats to the shade of his burrow for an afternoon siesta. Underground, the humidity can stay as high as 80%, making it a comfortable retreat, even on the hottest of days. Several dubs share the system of tunnels, which can be over 10 meters long. They also tolerate squatters like beetles, geckos, and even birds. Because sand burrows often collapse, they dig on the gravel plains that run under the sand for stronger structural support. The colony of lizards will use the same burrow for many years. This lush green seems a world away from the sandy desert, a rare oasis created by a natural spring and rain. Here, vegetation shades animals from the burning sun. Trees provide shelter, but also cover for some deadly hunters. Orb weaver spiders get their name from the circular or spiral shape of their webs. Every morning they build their webs, but they're for one-time use only. The spider will eat the threads at the end of the day and start again tomorrow. It's a 1 meter long, strong, almost invisible trap. The sticky threads will snare any insects that pass too close. To stop the prey from struggling and damaging the web or the spider, it's injected with paralyzing venom and wrapped in a package of silk. The venom contains enzymes that also slowly break down the fly's body tissue. Eventually, the contents will be a nutritious soup that the spider can drink. Despite its 10-centimeter leg span, the hunter can become the hunted. The quirky chameleon is a surprisingly skillful hunter. As it stalks, it rocks gently, mimicking branches blowing in the breeze, making itself invisible to its prey. When it spots a potential meal, its wandering eyes both focus forwards for precise depth perception. Once in strike range, it can deploy its weapon. The tongue is twice as long as its body and tipped with a ball of muscle that can turn itself into a big suction cup. When unleashed, it accelerates as fast as a car doing 0 to 100 in 1/100th of a second. Unlike the reptiles in the desert, the Arabian chameleon can stay active throughout the day. The vegetation here acts as a moisture trap between the mountains and the sea, creating a microclimate that stays at a fairly constant 32 degrees year-round. On the other side of the mountains, it's dry and very hot. Mid-afternoon can peak at over 50 degrees. Animals must retreat, leaving the desert seemingly empty. The boulders provide some shady cover for a varied community of different geckos. There are 28 species in Arabia, making them the most numerous reptile family. Most geckos have tiny hair-like structures on their toes that act like Velcro, helping them climb steep surfaces. The sticky pads are especially pronounced in the fan-footed gecko. Like most geckos, it's a creature of the night with large, sensitive eyes. Because they're so sensitive to light, their pupils must contract a few hundredths of their original size during the day to avoid damage from sunlight. But not semaphore geckos. They're day active and don't need to see in the dark. Their pupils are large and round by day. They're called semaphore geckos because unlike other species that communicate with sound, they communicate by waving their tails like flags. This species, the Carter's semaphore gecko, goes a step further. The male has an enlarged tail to send clearer signals. The bigger and spinier it is, the more attractive he is to females. With his impressive package, this fella's managed to attract a mate. She's had a growth spurt and has just finished shedding her skin. Rigid scales can't expand, so as a reptile grows, it must shed its skin and grow a new one, with a little room to spare. For any small animals that risk daylight activity, there's the threat of aerial attack. When a flock of ravens turns up, it's time to retreat. The day is almost over on the coast. After 12 hours, the tide eventually returns, releasing the sea snakes from their rock pool prisons. They can finally return to the sea. They immediately begin to hunt, exploring the corals and looking for a suitable target. Like its cousins on land, the sea snake has a forked tongue, but only needs to extend the tips to taste traces of prey in the water. Its bold stripes announce its toxic venom to other marine predators, like hungry sharks, leaving it to hunt undisturbed. It moves with fluidity and grace, now that it's finally back where it belongs. As the day moves on, the temperature slowly drops. For many animals, this is the time to get more active. But not for all of them. Because fission's so important to the chameleons hunting, It's active by day and sleeps by night. So as the sun sinks, it makes its way deeper into the vegetation, looking for a safe spot to sleep, usually hidden under a leaf. The dense foliage will also help incubate it during the cooler night. Some chameleons are known cannibals, which is probably why smaller individuals sleep in different parts of the vegetation than the adults, as they try to stay off the big guy's menu. Once the sun sets, the temperature on the sandy desert drops quickly. By 6 p.m., it's a slightly more comfortable 37 degrees. The dhub has had an evening snack of desert plants while it was cooler. But now he heads inside. Evening is when one of the desert's most notorious killers stirs. A horned viper, armed with potent venom, is ready to hunt. It seeks out a good hideaway, where it can lie in wait to ambush passing prey. A hooded malpolon is also preparing to hunt. Before it begins its night of prowling, it performs a peculiar ritual, a trait shared with very few other species. Known as self-rubbing, it spreads a fatty secretion from its nasal glands along its body. The purpose of this lipid-rich liquid is to seal in moisture so that it's not lost to the warm air. It's a more active predator than the viper and seeks out its victims rather than lying in wait. Rodents have spent the day in their underground burrows to stay cool. But now it's their time to forage for seeds, grasses, or even insects. The malpolon is quick to spot a potential meal. Even well-armed predators can be cautious. They need to pick their victims carefully. From ground level, this gerbil looks pretty big. Like all rodents, it has self-sharpening, chisel-shaped teeth and sharp claws. The snake is only likely to strike if the rodent turns to run, giving the snake a clear shot at its unprotected back. But the gerbil wisely turns to face its attacker. It chooses fight over flight. The snake decides not to risk injury, going in search of easier prey. The mammal wins this one. But thanks to the reptile's cold-blooded efficiency, the malpolon can afford to miss a meal. creatures tucked up safely in their burrows don't escape the dangers of the night. The Arabian sand boa is like a reptilian mole, perfectly shaped for a life of hunting beneath the sand. Its smooth scales lie flat, and its wedge-shaped head allows it to plow through the dunes. It will lie buried, with only its eyes at the surface, to watch for passing prey, like insects and small lizards. The Persian wonder gecko is an endemic species in Arabia. Like most other geckos, it's nocturnal. With its huge eyes, it can hunt insects by moonlight. Most geckos don't have eyelids and must lick their eyes to keep them clean and free of sand. Most have broad toes for gripping surfaces that they climb. But this desert specialist has replaced the pads with comb-like scales to help it move in the sand. The Persian wonder gecko has only been known to science for 20 years. Little is known about its biology. But we do know that this little lizard is regionally endangered. Habitat loss means it is facing extinction in the wild. The temperature reaches its coolest point in the early hours of the morning, where just the faintest moonlight creates an eerie glow. Both air and surface temperatures have stabilized at a comfortable 25 degrees. Perfect for a sand gecko to hunt. He's on the prowl for insects. The gecko uses its huge eyes, pupils fully dilated, to trap any moonlight. He's not the only hunter on the prowl. The horned viper is also looking for a meal. He hunts by touch. He lacks external ears and can't hear, but the inner ear can detect even the faintest vibrations of prey moving nearby. It knows something is there, but it can't seem to pinpoint it. The gecko has the advantage. It can open its pupils to more than 300 times their smaller size to capture even the weakest light. With its perfect night vision, the gecko can stay one step ahead. The secret lives of reptiles often play out under the cover of darkness. In the early hours of the morning, Arabia's biggest reptile is on a mission. A loggerhead turtle, the largest of 4 endangered species of sea turtles that breed on Arabia's coast. Like all reptiles, sea turtles evolved on land. It was during the reign of the dinosaurs that they expanded their range, conquering the sea itself. Now, sea turtles are totally designed for life underwater. But like all reptiles, their eggs must be laid on land. Females travel vast distances to their breeding beaches, to the exact same spots where they themselves hatched, to dig a hole and deposit their eggs. This female's running late. Turtles usually lay during the cooler night and try to be back in the water before sunrise. But she can't go until she completes her task. She's very precise in the construction of her nest. The depth will determine the temperature of the eggs. She's aiming for 28 to 32 degrees. If she gets it right, the warmer top half of the nest will produce female hatchlings, and the cooler lower half will produce males. If she gets it wrong, the whole clutch will be one sex. With the nest complete, she deposits around 120 eggs. A rubbery tube, called a novipositor, extends from her tail to ensure she puts all her eggs in one basket. The shells are rubbery to cushion their fall. Like most reptiles, she won't play any role in caring for her young. Her final task in motherhood is to delicately bury the clutch. The eggs will hatch in 40 days or so, but her job is done. Now she can return to the sea. She won't set foot on land for 3 or 4 years, when she returns to lay again. As the sun rises, the next shift from the reptile kingdom emerges. Ready to exploit Arabia's gift, the sun and its life-giving energy. As their ancestors have for millennia, they recharge their batteries, ready to face the challenges of a new day. Here, cold-blooded creatures have the upper hand. A land where reptiles rule. In a land of sand, life is tough. It can sink away in an instant. The Arabian desert is one of the most challenging places on Earth. But the animals here are resilient and specialized. Still, death is never far away. Creatures must seize every opportunity to find food, shelter, and water. Adaptability is the key to life and death in the dunes. One of Arabia's most iconic animals. It's often cited as original inspiration for the wondrous mythical creature, the unicorn. When viewed from the side, the Arabian Oryx looks like a large white animal with a single long horn. In fact, it's an antelope, one of the best adapted to a life in the furnace. The dominant oryx bull starts his day looking over his herd. As the sun rises, the group will adapt their behavior to cope with the changing conditions it brings. Oryx typically form small groups of less than a dozen. Any more would put too much pressure on the scant vegetation. There's a strict hierarchy that's enforced with posturing and head gestures. The dominant animals of both sexes use their 60-centimeter horns to make their point. Only the dominant male breeds. This herd bull spends most of his time patrolling. He monitors the females for hormonal changes that signal they are ready to breed. He does so by tasting her urine. He curls his lip, a strange grimace known as flamen, to pull the scent to what's called the Jacobson's organ on the roof of his mouth. With this, he can sense her hormone levels and determine when she'll be ready to mate. She doesn't seem to be ready just yet. The herd has other things to worry about. Their first challenge of the day is to warm up. At night, the temperature only drops to around 20 degrees Celsius. But to creatures built to withstand heat, which can exceed 50 degrees, that feels cold. The oryx turn themselves to stand side-on to the warming sun, exposing as much of their bodies as possible. Though they have white hair to reflect the heat, they're black-skinned underneath and can raise their hair to allow more of the rays to reach the darker, heat-absorbing color beneath. They won't have long to wait. The sun will bake the land in short order. The Arabian Peninsula is the largest peninsula on Earth, over 3 million square kilometers. It's dominated by an array of deadly landscapes. Vast sand dunes roll into dry gravel plains, fringed by desolate rocky hills. This is the Arabian Desert. Hostile and barren, a land seemingly devoid of life. Animals and plants that live here must cope with extremes of temperature, suffocating shifting sand, and an almost complete absence of water. They must also survive each other. Arabia was once part of Africa and covered in lush green plains. 35 million years ago, there was no Red Sea, so animals could freely move back and forth. 10,000 years ago, at the end of the Ice Age, sea levels rose and flooded what is now the Red Sea. Animals were stranded on the Arabian Peninsula, and as the climate changed, the plains dried out. The options were simple: adapt or die. The survivors are now masters of the desert. But even for these hardiest of creatures, life is a constant struggle. Food, water, and shelter are in short supply, especially as the desert turns up the heat. It's only 7 a.m., but the mercury is already in the high 20s. For animals the size of an oryx to survive, they must keep constantly on the move, seeking out every possible opportunity to eat. They'll make a non-stop journey of 120 kilometers or more to get to fresh grazing. There are several youngsters in the group, all sired by the herd bull. Being smaller and more vulnerable doesn't win the calves any favors. They still have to give way to higher-ranking individuals. Now between 2 and 3 months old, they still suckle from their mothers. The young are browner in color than the adults, a useful trait giving them some degree of camouflage against the sand. Other calves in the group are 5 months old. Their brown coats are already fading. They weaned nearly a month ago and scrape a living from whatever desert vegetation they can find. Regardless of their age, the young are expected to keep up. The herd's home range can be 2,500 square kilometers. They never stay in one area for more than a few months to avoid overgrazing. But moving can bring new challenges. The herd has wandered into the territory of a lone bull. Until they can secure a herd, bulls lead a solitary existence, guarding their turf and waiting for available females to pass through. But this group already has its herd bull. For many animals, this would be a certain fight, and their horns are potentially lethal. But for these desert dwellers, there's a far greater threat: the heat. A fight would waste valuable energy, but the lone bull wants the herd. It may be worth a challenge. Posturing, they size each other up. The brief tussle's enough to persuade the loner that it's a fight he can't win. He lets the herd pass through his territory unhindered. It might be a long, tough journey. One of the biggest challenges here is the terrain: sand. This shifting, gritty, irritating topography has shaped one of the desert's most extreme specialists, the sandfish. He's not a fish at all, but a lizard, a type of skink. Like all reptiles, he's cold-blooded and starts his day basking in the sun to warm up. Scientists long thought his stout limbs were tucked against his sides to help him sink under the sand. Recent studies have revealed that they rotate back and forth using the front crawl stroke. He can literally swim through the sand. What's sleek and streamlined beneath the sand looks a lot clumsier on the surface. His short legs give him a distinctive waddle. Most small animals have no choice other than to hide away during the blazing heat of the day. But larger animals have no such luxury. Some of the most famous specialists live out on the rocky plains. Known as the ships of the desert, camels are the ultimate desert survivors. Dromedaries, or one-humped camels, aren't truly wild. They're a domesticated species that now roams free. Fossil evidence suggests that they were domesticated here 4,000 years ago. By 2,000 years ago, their wild ancestors were extinct. Nonetheless, they still have their predecessors' remarkable adaptations that enable them to survive this fierce desert. In the midst of the group is a tiny youngster, just a few weeks old, still showing the last traces of the umbilical cord that once connected him to his mother. Older cousins gather around him. There's no real hierarchy in camel society. Outside the breeding season, females and males live in separate groups. Females with similar-aged calves stay close together so their offspring can socialize. The young are kept in a creche in the middle of the herd for protection. Despite the care, the young male's future is far from assured. With danger from predators, disease, and above all the heat and lack of water, 30% of young camels won't reach their third birthdays. To survive the dangers of the desert, this little guy's on a steep learning curve. By 8 a.m., it's reached a scalding 35 degrees. The temperature will continue to climb. There's another herd on the dunes, that has its own adaptations to survive. These are sand gazelles. They get all their water from their food. They must eat 30% of their body weight daily and keep constantly on the move, covering 15 kilometers a day in search of fresh grazing. Even their extreme physiology doesn't guarantee their success. In bad drought years, half the gazelles may perish. The oryx are also experts in conserving water. Their breakfast consists of little more than dry grasses, but there'll be enough moisture in the plants to keep them alive. Their extremely efficient kidneys make sure no water is wasted. They produce ultra-concentrated urine and dry droppings. As humans get hot, we sweat to maintain a constant internal temperature. No matter how hot it gets, oryx won't sweat. They cannot afford to lose the water. Instead, they will allow their internal body temperature to rise to around 39 degrees, while still keeping their brain cool. The excess body heat will dissipate during the cooler night. Oryx are browsers, and plants like this tribulus are a vital source of minerals. Vegetation is sparse, especially here, where there's little but loose sand. Even for plants, life's a day-to-day struggle for survival. Dune grasses are one of the few species to colonize the shifting sand. Their long roots search a large area for water and ensure they catch as much moisture as possible on the rare occasions that it rains. These roots help stabilize the dunes themselves. Thick skins help prevent water loss to evaporation, but they don't protect them from the oryx's battery of tough, grinding teeth. Another challenge for life out in the desert is the lack of cover for hiding. But there are some stealthy specialists. Lying motionless, with her sandy, mottled coat, the sand cat's easy to miss. She looks like a house cat, but is much more reclusive and nocturnal. Seeing one out in the open, especially by day, is extremely rare. She typically spends her days in a cool, underground den, but this morning she's enjoying the fresh air before it gets too hot. The sandcat is the only feline species adapted solely for a life on sand. Her soft, dense fur protects her from the sun's rays and insulates her during the cold night. Her claws are more retracted and blunter than other cats because she often digs her prey from the sand. The pads on her feet are hairy to act like snowshoes, keeping her from sinking into the sand. Food resources are scarce, but water is non-existent, so the cat must hunt to obtain moisture from her food. This can be anything from insects to hares. Like all predators, she spends most of her time sleeping, up to 18 hours a day. Even as she rests, she seems to be dreaming of a hunt. It doesn't take much to wake her. Lizards are her primary prey. Thanks to her hairy feet, she barely leaves footprints and can tiptoe in silence. Warmed by the hot sun, the lizard's turbocharged. She prefers to hunt at night and will return to her den to sleep through the hot day. The air temperature reaches a peak of 50 degrees in the early afternoon. But the sand, having absorbed the morning sun, is much hotter, 65 degrees, hot enough to boil an egg. Even camels struggle. They rarely find enough shade, so sit side by side facing the sun. This way, only their narrow front is exposed directly to the rays, not their broad sides. The little calf learns by copying his mother. To protect their bodies from the scalding heat of the sand, they have thick calluses on their chests, knees, and wrists. They stop the rest of the body from contacting the sand. Camels have thick curly fur that reflects the heat. The surface of the fur can be hot to the touch, but the covering's so efficient that the skin remains much cooler. Only if their bodies reach 42 degrees, a potentially fatal temperature, will the camel sweat to try and cool down. The oryx have a different technique to beat the heat. Northerly winds are fairly constant here and build during the afternoon. The oryx climb the dunes, exposing themselves to the breeze. The wind's hot, but it's better than nothing. Now their white coats act as reflectors, bouncing back rather than absorbing the sun. They have broad feet to spread their weight, making it easier to walk on the dunes. The hooves also make good shovels, and the antelope can dig to expose a cooler bed of sand, the ideal place to sit. The air they breathe in cools their blood as it travels to their brains, preventing tissue damage from the heat. Once the afternoon temperature has reached its peak, even the oryx must seek shelter. Little gullies in the dunes hold just enough moisture and offer slightly better ground for plant life. An oasis that creates small pockets of shade. The herd male picks the best seat in the house. Everyone else must fit in around him. The calves must still follow herd protocol. Settled in, they'll sit out the afternoon sun. The dunes of the desert have a life of their own. They're always on the move, slowly drifting southeast. Winds are constantly blowing from the northwest, picking up the grains and depositing them again. The ripples follow the direction of these prevailing winds. At their biggest, the dunes can be 100 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. The dunes are supported by gravel beds, pebbles that are too big for the wind to shift. The stones were washed out from the surrounding mountains during the Ice Age, when the climate was a lot wetter. The rivers that deposited them have long since dried up. Now sand flows in their place. By 5 p.m., the sun is starting to sink. Temperatures gradually release their grip on the desert. The sandfish emerges from his daytime hideout. Now at a more comfortable temperature, he can hunt. Normally, he uses his sensitive hearing to locate beetle larvae burrowing in the sand. But ants are on tonight's menu. He'll need to be careful. He's not the only reptile around. And some of his neighbors can be deadly. Diagonal tracks, a clue that another predator is nearby. A horned viper moves over the dunes with his body raised, so that only 2 points are ever in contact with the hot sand. The raised dunes give him a chance to absorb the last few rays of sun, to ready himself for the kill. He's an ambush hunter and looks for a place to lie in wait for a target to wander too close. Lizards, birds, and small mammals are his preferred prey. Now in a prime position, he waits for the cover of darkness. At dusk, a new cast of characters comes to life. The Rappel's fox sleeps in a den to escape the heat of day. But now, as it cools off, he's also ready to hunt. Most members of the dog family pant to cool down, but this tiny fox has other options. His huge ears help with heat loss. He loses 55% less water than other mammals of the same size. Like so many here, he gets all his moisture from his food, which can be anything from small mammals to plants. He tiptoes quietly, thanks to long hair covering the pads of his feet. Though it helps him make a quiet approach, their most important role is protecting his pads from the burning sand. Like a bloodhound, he follows his nose. An acute sense of smell brings great rewards. A dead bird is a lucky find. By day, there are only a few species of mammals visible in the desert, but night reveals a far greater diversity. Many have been hiding right beneath the camel's feet. There are 80 species of mammal in Saudi Arabia. Most are rodents. For tiny mammals like this gerbil, the open is a dangerous place. Survival depends on the safety of a burrow. He forages for seeds and grasses, and even the occasional insect. Coming out at night means the gerbil can avoid the sun. But deadly predators roam in the dark. The horned viper's found his ambush spot. He's coiled and ready to strike. He can detect the vibrations of the approaching prey, feeling its movements as he lines up his attack. He can taste its scent with his forked tongue. After injecting his lethal venom, the viper retreats. Death comes quickly. Prey of this size is usually dead within 90 seconds. The snake will stay out of the way of its sharp claws and teeth until its victim is helpless. The bones of its lower jaw don't actually dislocate. They aren't fused together at all. The point where they meet at the front and where they connect with the skull at the back is supported by stretchy ligaments. The viper eats the gerbil head first, so that its limbs fold neatly against its body and don't catch in the snake's throat. He tries to do this as quickly as possible, because with his mouth full, he could be vulnerable to other predators. It might take half an hour to swallow the gerbil and several days to digest it. At night, insects are also more active. Now that the temperatures drop to a more comfortable 30 degrees, dehydration is less of a threat. Like the gerbil, their chance of running into a predator increases. A Ruppel's fox uses its keen hearing and sense of smell to locate a meal. The fox patrols a large territory, around 70 square kilometers, so there can be a lot of walking to find food. But persistence pays off. A large locust is a protein-packed meal. By 6 a.m., light begins its return to the dunes, and heat is on the rise. As usual, there's a changeover in the animal community. Surviving rodents retreat to their burrows. The day shift begins once more. The sandfish is cautious as he looks for a safe spot to bask and warm up. But this morning, he doesn't need to worry. After its huge meal, the horned viper is resting and realigning its jaws. He needs to sit in a safe spot and digest his prey. As he warms up, he'll process his meal more efficiently. Thanks to strong enzymes in his stomach, he'll be able to digest the entire gerbil except for its hair and claws, which he'll excrete. As the sun climbs towards the middle of the day, the weather conditions slowly change. Warm winds are constantly shifting the desert sands, molding and moving the dunes. During the summer afternoons, areas of high pressure intensify the breeze. The ingredients for the perfect storm. The bank of cloud is a sign of trouble. The high pressure stirs the winds, getting more of the fine particles airborne. A common but deadly threat arises: a sandstorm. For the inexperienced, it could be a death sentence. It would be easy to get lost in the darkness, blinded by the sharp particles, or suffocated as sand fills the lungs. But desert specialists have their coping mechanisms. Camels can squint into the storm thanks to large bushy eyebrows and long lashes that protect their eyes. They can close their nostrils to prevent inhaling sand. Luckily, most sandstorms blow over quickly. Sometimes the desert's far less forgiving. Beneath one of the nearby trees is a reminder of just how fragile life can be. The bones of a young camel. Even ships of the desert can sink. The desert can be devastating, but destruction can also bring opportunity. The storms brought down an acacia. The crumbly, sandy soil wasn't enough to anchor the tree. Even for plants, death is ever present. But the tree's loss is the camel's gain. Camels specialize in eating the least edible of plants. Their thick, rubbery lips act like fingers to pick up tiny leaves and bark from around large thorns. Like all ruminants, or animals that chew the cud, they don't have teeth in the front of their upper jaw. Instead, the lower incisors nip against a tough palate. It's like a pair of pruning shears with a blade cutting against a flat surface. The incisors strip bark from the fallen branches. Even the toughest woody material can be ground down by a battery of powerful molars in the back of the jaws. The food will be partly digested and then brought back up for a second chewing to absorb as many of the nutrients as possible. The gorging camels stir up insects that were hiding in the vegetation. Among them, a master of disguise. A female striped or devil's flower mantis. Six centimeters of killer instinct. She's a stealth predator. She creeps forward, rocking her body back and forth as though blown by a breeze, adding realism to her leafy disguise. The name praying mantis comes from the folded arms, which seem to be held up in prayer. But this isn't an act of repose. Her weapons are concealed. Her claws can be swung forwards with incredible speed, pinning her insect prey against the spine-lined arms. But despite her weaponry, she's not immune to attack. For a predatory bird, like the sharp-beaked shrike, the mantis could become a meal. She cautiously retreats. But these avian hunters are also hunted. The flocking featherweights don't go unnoticed by the sandcat. With so many pairs of eyes watching, it's hard to sneak up. The camels ignore the community around them. They need to eat as much as they can while the going's good. The hump of a camel stores fat. When food's abundant, its body produces the fat and strong fibrous connective tissue to hold it in place. Most animals store fat on their bodies, but fat's an insulator and would cause a desert animal to overheat. By storing it in the hump, it doesn't interfere with the camel's ability to stay cool. It's a survival backpack. When the animal falls on hard times, it can metabolize the fat, producing both energy and water. The young camel barely has a hump at all. It will take a while to build up good reserves. In the height of summer, even the adults are low on supplies. Their humps have diminished, a reminder that resources in the desert can be few and far between. They must always restock when they can. While the adults feed, the young play. They are necking and nipping. But these little guys won't be engaging in true sexual behavior for at least 6 years. so they have plenty of time to perfect their act. The oryx have been trekking all day, as the temperature's risen around them. By late afternoon, their endurance pays off. The storms brought with them light rains, something oryx are capable of detecting from as much as 80 kilometers away. The water's long gone. It's evaporated or drained through the sand. But the plants have trapped some. Moisture-rich vegetation is worth traveling for. The Arabian oryx was once hunted to the brink of extinction. It was only captive breeding and release that saved the species. Today, a mere 1,000 roam wild in the desert. Though their numbers have stabilized, they're still considered vulnerable. Even with protection from hunting, their survival hangs in the balance. They're at the mercy of the environment and must trudge every day to eke out their living. Not all of them will make it. The harsh environment claims around 40% of the calves before they reach maturity. So far, this herd's doing well. The fresh vegetation is a welcome feast. Even the youngest calf is having his first nibble. In a few weeks, he'll be on his own. He needs to use this time to watch and learn, to master finding food and moisture and beating the heat. He needs to be ready for a life on the dunes. Arabia, a land where water is scarce. Animals struggle to survive. The desert mountains conceal a rare waterhole, a wadi, a lifeline to those that endure the inhospitable heat. But animals seeking respite here are at the mercy of predators. Lightning-fast snakes glide on water, hunting down their prey. Tarantulas and scorpions stalk the shadows. And hungry desert foxes prowl under the cover of darkness. These are the wonders of the wadi. Arabia is home to one of the largest continuous sand deserts on Earth. Vast tracts of sand dunes are broken in places by scorching gravel plains. Dramatic, jagged mountains rise on its fringes. Temperatures can hit 54 degrees Celsius. The landscape lacks one vital ingredient for life: water. But seemingly dry river valleys are rare places where water can be found. Here in the mountains, the bedrock is hard enough to trap the little rain that falls, creating normally temporary, though sometimes permanent, pools of water. These pools are known locally as wadis, the Arabic word for valley. This wadi, dwarfed by barren rock faces and towering mountains, may not look like much, but this rare oasis offers a lifeline for wildlife. Toads are one of only a handful of animals that can exist here year-round. Unsurprisingly, amphibians are extremely rare in arid Arabia. Just 9 species are found here. Most are confined to the cooler coastal areas. The Arabian toad is the only species to have penetrated the drier interior, and it is entirely dependent on the wadi. The toad's sudden movement catches a predator's eye. A wadi racer is on the hunt. This deadly specialist lives up to its name. The 1.3-meter snake uses lightning speed to hunt in the pools. The racer produces a mild venom, but since it lacks fangs, it must chew on its prey for the toxin to penetrate its victim. Its favorite food is toad. The snake's vision is especially sensitive to movement. Each time the toad hops, the visual hunter draws closer. If the toad keeps perfectly still, the snake can't detect it. It is a battle of nerves. Incredibly, the snake's tongue seems unable to pinpoint its target, even at point-blank range. The toad's bravery pays off. The wadi lies in the mountains, rising along the east coast of the Arabian Peninsula. The Al Hajar mountain range stretches 500 kilometers from the United Arab Emirates in the north into the Sultanate of Oman in the south. With peaks of nearly 3,000 meters, these mountains have towered over Arabia's scorched plains for around 20 million years. The river valleys within them are exposed to both long periods of drought and sudden flash flooding. Despite the harsh terrain, animals eke out a living at every level. The king of the castle, found only in the high country, is one of the rarest animals in Arabia and the world. The Arabian tar. Fewer than 2,500 of these endangered animals remain. The Al Hajar Mountains are their last refuge. High above the wadi, there are few resources. Both soil and water run off these hills, leaving them bare and dry. The impervious rock makes it difficult for plants to take root. The barren slopes cannot support large herds of grazers, so tars are usually found in small family groups or on their own. This Billy is tired of living by himself. It's time to find a mate. Sure-footed on the rocks, thanks to his compact rubbery hooves, he struts his stuff, presenting himself to any females who might be watching. His shoveling and head rubbing spread his scent. The churned soil is like a billboard, announcing that a vigorous billy goat is in residence. Already a nanny-tar watches from afar. He will have to up his game if he's to win the female over. On the lower slopes, closer to the wadi, other rock climbing specialists make their living. Most geckos, like this fan-footed gecko, have microscopic hair-like structures on their feet and can grip even smooth vertical surfaces. This spacious rock gecko is also perfectly adapted to the steep walls around the wadi. It is endemic to Arabia and is found mostly in the United Arab Emirates and Oman. Another deadly threat lurks in the shadows. There are nearly 1,000 species of tarantula in the world. This one is brand new to science, so recently discovered that it hasn't been named yet. It's unique to the wadi systems of Arabia. This bulky female is turning her hideout in the rocks into a deadly trap. The tube-like spinnerets on her backside exude a gluey substance that hardens on contact with air to form very strong threads of silk. She uses the threads to line the inside of her chamber, to reinforce the walls and prevent collapse. But some of the lines of silk extend outside the burrow. Tripwires alerting her to anything that might stroll within striking distance. A grasshopper is a meaty meal. By tarantula standards, she is small. Her body is just 3 centimeters in diameter. But that will not stop her targeting prey her own size. An insect needs only to brush a tripwire, and it is game over. She dispatches her prey with the tarantula's trademark weapons, a huge pair of fangs leading to 2 venom glands. The fangs are jointed and can be moved like fingers to stab the victim and pull it closer to her mouth. She injects enzymes into the corpse that will begin digesting its insides, turning it into an insect smoothie. She sucks her victim dry and discards the empty shell. Darkness reaches the wadi early, its steep sides shaded from the setting sun. Night, and a little ultraviolet light reveals a deadly scorpion. Fluorescent compounds in his body armor produce the eerie color. Though just why it has evolved to glow in UV light is a mystery. Recent studies reveal that the fluorescence found in the scorpion shell acts as a full-body light sensor, with the tail being especially sensitive. Scorpions hide by day, away from harsh UV sunlight. But preliminary studies show that these arachnids are also less active during full moonlit nights. It may be that the fluorescing helps the scorpion determine the best time to hunt, when light levels are lowest. When it does hunt, tiny slits at the end of its legs can sense vibrations on the ground from anything moving within half a meter of them. Grasshoppers are a popular menu item around the wadi. The scorpion has sharp pincers for wrestling and dismembering prey. But it carries its main weapon aloft, a sting in the tail, coiled and ready to strike. It takes a fraction of a second for the needle-like tip to pump venom into its victim, if it can get close enough. Before the assassin can move in for the kill, another nocturnal hunter disturbs it. It's a Blanford's fox, a small, agile canine that emerges only at night. Sharp claws and rubbery feet act like sneakers to help him grip as he climbs the rocks around the wadi. His long tail provides a counterbalance. He will eat just about anything, from insects to desert plants. But it's small mammals he's really after. And they're likely to be close to water. Bats dash in to catch insects attracted to the water. But he's not likely to catch one of these. His large, sensitive ears detect some rustling. A spiny mouse. The rodent forages for seeds and grasses, feeling its way with its long whiskers. For the fox, it's a welcome snack. But he's not alone. An Arabian red fox is also on the prowl. No predator likes competition for food and will drive off or even kill a smaller rival. The Arabian red fox can be 3 or 4 times heavier than a 1.5 kilo Blanford's. The underdog decides not to risk a run-in and heads for higher ground. As the sun rises over the wadi, so too does the mercury. In summer, temperatures can hit 43 degrees. But the rising heat does not deter the male tar. This morning, he intensifies his mating campaign. The female relaxes in what little shade the scant vegetation provides. Try though he might, she just does not seem interested. The male cannot afford to relax. Scent glands at the base of his horns leave a smelly calling card. She does not look impressed. He raises his scent game further. He urinates on the ground, then flicks the pee into his fur. His body odor is loaded with testosterone. The hormone signals to the female that he's in his prime and ready to mate. Ramming the ground with his horns stirs up the scent. Glands on his face add to the aroma as he gives himself a pungent facial. This is goat cologne that the ladies will hopefully find hard to resist. But this female still seems uninterested. Her lackluster presence drives the frustrated male wild. For a finale, he goes in for some prancing. But it seems to have the opposite effect. He may be coming on too strong. Beneath the tar, on the valley floor, rare pools of water teem with life. freshwater fish. Only 3 species survive in the Al Hajar Mountains, and this one is the Oman Gara. They endure only in isolated permanent pools of the wadi. These tiny fish get by scraping algae and any other detritus from the rock walls of their watery prison. Their survival depends on much-needed rainfall to replenish their shrinking refuge. But rain is unpredictable in Arabia. Some years it does not rain at all. Then some pools will dry up, and the fish in those will die. When the water of the wadi evaporates to nothing, the Arabian toad vanishes with it. But this is no permanent disappearing act. The toad buries itself in the mud and enters a state of torpor, like hibernation. It lowers its heart rate and metabolism to save energy and keep it safe until water returns. Remarkably, the toad can stay buried for up to 3 years. Little moisture penetrates Arabia's interior. But here, the high altitude of the mountains causes rare clouds to condense. The first drops of rain bring instant relief, tempting some of the residents from their dark crevices. The spacious rock gecko has a remarkable ability to repel water. Tiny hair-like spines all over its scales actively push liquid molecules away. They form bigger droplets that run off. It is a neat trick that helps to keep geckos clean and free from fungal infections. "80% of the water that falls in the mountains will evaporate. The rest quickly runs off the hard ground and into cracks in the rocks. Rain here in the Al Hajar Mountains is erratic and unreliable. A mere 15 centimeters falls each year, and it comes in only a few short, heavy bursts. The toads instinctively know that when water comes, it can come fast and furious. They scramble to higher ground to avoid being washed away. The rain runs off the mountains, building momentum as it descends to the valley floor. light rain can quickly turn tranquil pools into rapids. While toads stay clear, the rushing water has the opposite effect on the garrafish. This is the opportunity they've been waiting for. They have a mysterious, instinctive drive to always explore upstream, driven by the need to expand their territory. They take whatever opportunity they can to forge into the current. This is how the species can recolonize areas where the previous inhabitants have perished. But this is not just fish swimming upriver. These fish undertake an epic climb. Their sucker mouths, which usually scrape algae from the rocks, become anchors, securing them against the fast-flowing water. A group inches its way up the rocks. The fish must stay within the splash zone in order to breathe, but stay out of the main flow to avoid being washed back downstream. The fish can travel up to 3 meters. For those that make it into new pools, there are fresh possibilities, food, and a new territory to colonize. The stress of the journey is also thought to trigger their spawning behavior, to make sure every new pool is quickly populated by the pioneers. Their sticky eggs will settle in the gravel to stop them washing back downstream. The rushing water is a mixed blessing. It creates opportunity for some, but a challenge for others. This endemic Oman carpet viper usually hides in crevices by the wadi pools, knowing they are a good place to hunt. But the sudden water flushes this one from its lair. He struggles against the current. Luckily, the water brings him to rest against the rocks, where he can climb in search of higher sanctuary. The sudden surge of water is short-lived. But it can claim victims. A goat lies dead at the water's edge. Perhaps it was trapped by floodwater or washed downstream. Its rotting body provides sustenance for insects. Their ability to complete their life cycles in just a few days means insects are quick to exploit fresh opportunities. Flesh-eating flies taste their food with their feet. They secrete enzyme-packed saliva from their mouthparts to break down the flesh, making it easier to consume. They also look for places to lay their eggs, where maggots can hatch and join in the feast. Wasps are better equipped to deal with a tough carcass. They have powerful shearing mouthparts to tear through flesh. Adult wasps are primarily plant eaters, but they will carry tiny mouthfuls of meat to their nests to feed hungry carnivorous grubs. Dragonflies are among the top predators of the Wadi. Their compound eyes contain 10 times greater variation in proteins than human eyes, allowing them to see a far wider range of colors. Their image resolution gives them ultra high-definition vision. They can collect and interpret 300 images per second, 6 times more than us. Their forewings flap 30 times a second, giving them incredible aerial agility. Like miniature helicopters, they can travel in any direction to outmaneuver prey. In turn, the insects are magnets for bird life. Like dragonflies, pale crag martins catch insects on the wing. These acrobatic members of the swallow family are attracted to the high rocky ledges and overhangs around the mountain wadi. Here, pairs of breeding residents build their nests using fresh mud from the valley below. Nests can take several weeks to construct, but the high-rise homes will protect their young from predators. One bird visitor does not need such high-level security. The nightjar is so well camouflaged that as long as it doesn't move, it is almost impossible to see. It too catches insects on the wing, but only at night. By day, it remains inactive, keeping a low profile on the ground, away from hungry eyes. There is little cover on the bare rock faces of the wadi, but it suits this predatory master of the skies. The Oman carpet viper, now recovered from its sudden swim, is one of the deadliest wadi residents. This 75-centimeter snake with unusually long fangs can inject deadly venom deep into its victims. It only inhabits the mountainous regions, especially near wadis, where it waits to ambush passing prey. a toad would make an ample meal for the predator, but only if it ventures into the strike zone. But it's not close enough today. While the flash flood is long gone, residual moisture hangs in the air. For the next few weeks after rain, the humidity and replenished surface water nurture rare plant life around the wadi. Out on the gravel plains, there is no sign of the water that drenched the rocks only days earlier. But scrubby plant life now sports fresh green growth. Mountain gazelles are quick to exploit the new moisture-rich vegetation. Like many desert specialists, these delicate antelope get most of their water from their plant diet. Out here, opportunities to drink fresh water are few and far between. As darkness descends over the wadi, an Arabian toad prepares to make the most of the night ahead. The toad is an opportunistic breeder. Rain often triggers spawning. This one is ready to find a mate. He needs to put on his best voice to serenade the females. His extending throat pouch amplifies his call, which echoes around the wadi. The bigger the croak, the better his chances will be. But he has competition. Soon there's a choir of toads, a chorus of single males, trying out their best chat-up lines. He spots a passing female and leapfrogs onto her back. He uses sticky pads on his front feet to try to attach himself. His love interest does her best to wriggle free. But there's a problem. She appears to be a he. In most toads, only males have the expandable throat sacs, which allow them to amplify their calls. It's not uncommon for male toads to jump on each other. Usually, a release call by the love interest thwarts the would-be suitor. But not this one. He holds tight, determined to attempt amplexus, the pairing that triggers spawning in externally fertilizing amphibians. Males can cling on to females for hours or even days, waiting for the moment when their partners deposit their eggs. When a female begins to lay, the male will release his sperm to fertilize the emerging eggs. But tonight his efforts will be futile. Eventually, the male releases his grip and heads off to try again. As a new day dawns, the mountain wadi is eerily quiet. On the rocky slopes above, the tar's elaborate mating display seems to have finally paid off. The female has returned and now rarely leaves his side. The pair will stay together and raise their young here. With just a few thousand Arabian tar left in the world, the success of every breeding pair is vital to the future of the species. A few weeks following successful toad spawning, the temporary pools are packed with Arabian toad tadpoles. They now race to reach maturity, eating as much as they can to fuel their body's transformation. The more they eat, the sooner they will be able to complete their metamorphosis. Legs develop at the base of their tails, which begin to shrink. Their mouths turn from simple algae-sucking lips to insect-crushing jaws. Crucially, primitive internal lungs replace their external aquatic gills. Only those that complete the transformation will cope when the pools dry up. Any young garrafish that have matured in small temporary pools now face the greatest instinctive challenge of their young lives. They must clamber their way to permanent pools. In just a few weeks, the flow of water from the hills will cease completely, and most pools will shrink away. The wadi will retain some water, so as long as the fish reach this permanent sanctuary, they will survive. It's a long, hard struggle. Many fish are left high and almost dry. Unable to breathe in the air that envelops them, they gasp, trying to extract oxygen from the remaining moisture. Their powerful bodies catapult them as they attempt to find their way to another puddle. A handful of lucky fish wriggle their way to salvation. Enough to replenish the pool and ensure the future survival of the local population. In this harshest of environments, all animals live on a knife edge. The landscape can give and take away in an instant. For most, existence would be impossible without the tiny pockets of water cradled in the wadi. A miniature oasis in Arabia's Inferno. A lifeline in the desert. A scorching sun blazes over the Arabian landscape. Summer is the most challenging season for animals to endure. Wing migrations allow some to escape the soaring temperatures. Those that stay need to beat the heat. From the largest raptors to the smallest pilots. These are Arabia's aerial masters. A bird of prey soars over the barren Arabian landscape. An Egyptian vulture on the lookout for food. With a wingspan of more than 1.5 meters, it is one of Arabia's most majestic and endangered aerial masters. The vulture's white body feathers contrast sharply with dark flight feathers, creating a dramatic silhouette against the sky. This purely visual hunter can travel up to 80 kilometers a day in the blistering heat. In summer, temperatures here can exceed 50 degrees Celsius. Circling vultures point to the possibility of carrion on the ground. A rocky outcrop is a good vantage point to survey the scene below. Death is never far away in this desolate land. But one animal's loss is a scavenger's gain. More than 700 species of bird are found on the Arabian Peninsula. The region is a transit hub for thousands of birds moving between feeding and breeding grounds in Europe, Africa, and Asia. It's estimated that 3 billion migrating birds cross Arabia every year. Many birds of prey leave for cooler areas before the scorching summer heat takes hold. But a resident population of Egyptian vultures remains year-round. This mix of adults and darker juveniles are in for the long haul. An unlucky goat provides a welcome feast. Although it will take some live prey, carrion makes up most of the vulture's diet. The newcomer surveys the scene from above. Vulture etiquette requires that new arrivals and dark-feathered juveniles wait their turn. Up close, the fully grown Egyptian vulture is a curious-looking bird. Its mostly white feathers and distinctive featherless yellow face mark it apart from other vultures. The white helps to reflect the sun, enabling the bird to stay cool in the Arabian heat. The bare skin on its face may also help control its body temperature. Unlike other vultures who have bare necks, the Egyptian has a shaggy ruff of feathers that stays largely clean as it feeds. Vultures are nature's master recyclers. They provide a vital service in removing organic waste, clearing up potentially disease-causing carcasses. Above the feast, more hungry vultures arrive. Wing flapping is hard work for a bird weighing more than 2 kilos. So like other birds of prey, the vulture uses rising columns of warm air, called thermals, to stay airborne for longer. It uses its wedge-shaped tail to steer in circles, to stay within the rising warm air columns and maximize uplift, enabling it to soar. This increases its chances to pinpoint prey, or other vultures who already have. For birds associated with fresh water, the desert may seem an unlikely place to take up residence. But one of Arabia's most flamboyant aerial masters has done just that. More than 2,000 flamingos have made their home at a flooded salt flat on the industrial outskirts of Abu Dhabi city in the United Arab Emirates. Man-managed lakes like these at the Al Wathba wetlands provide a rare lifeline to Arabia's resident and migrating birds. Like the vultures, these greater flamingos will endure the excessive summer heat and stay year-round. Flamingos are strong flyers once in the air, but takeoff requires more effort. These 3-kilo birds must run as they beat their wings for liftoff. Once up, they are graceful, stretching their long necks and long legs into a straight line measuring up to 1.5 meters. Wingtip to wingtip, they're almost as wide as they are long. Their wing beats, interspersed with short glides, keep them airborne over long distances. Flamingos have been recorded flying up to 600 kilometers a night. And like other group travelers, conserve their energy by flying in formation, maximizing use of a slipstream. As they come into land, these graceful birds glide, then run a few paces as they touch down. In 1998, this remarkable population was the first to breed on the Arabian Peninsula, after an absence of more than 70 years. Each year, parents build their sandy mud nests on remote islands in the middle of the lake, far away from egg predators like foxes or monitor lizards. The flamingos share this vital inland wetland with a number of other waders, including winner of the title World's Longest Legged Bird relative to body size, the black-winged stilt. Its distinctive red legs make up 60% of its height and enable it to wade out to feeding areas where shorter waders cannot go. Stilts also breed around the lake in summer. Light gray juveniles and adults stride out in search of aquatic insects or tiny crustaceans that they mostly peck on or near the surface. This rare wetland is vital to Arabia's birds. 460 species are found in the United Arab Emirates. More than half have been recorded here at Al Wathba. Islands around the Arabian Peninsula provide sanctuary for many other nesting birds. During summer, those that spend most of their lives at sea come ashore to breed. Like these bridal terns, which have found a piece of prime nesting real estate. But it's not their nest. This spacious twig basket belongs to a much bigger bird. Above them, an osprey perches on a telecom's tower. Osprey like a high vantage point to hunt from. Trees are scarce, so they take full advantage of man-made structures. Where numbers of breeding ospreys are decreasing, platforms have been erected to encourage these magnificent birds to nest once more. This juvenile is too young to breed, is just starting out in life. Its parents will hopefully return to their nest later in the year. Here, the terns use the osprey nest simply as a lookout post or to catch a breeze. They prefer to nest among the scant vegetation or in shallow scrapes on the ground. Swift terns, with their distinctive black crests and large yellow bills, pack together in a show of breeding solidarity as they incubate their eggs. Even in the shade, the ground can reach egg-busting temperatures of almost 40 degrees. This sparrow tries to cool its precious egg by standing and exposing it to the sea breeze. Nearby, a quarrel breaks out amongst the neighbors. Two male sooty gulls are locked in a bitter territorial dispute. an incubating female watches on. Gulls are monogamous, but rivalry over territory can be brutal. Eventually, one of the males concedes defeat. This female keeps cool by opening her bill. Unlike humans, birds do not have sweat glands to perspire. So this gaping enables her and her neighbors to lose body heat from their respiratory system. It's the avian equivalent of panting and prevents birds from overheating. Sandy coastal areas provide invaluable habitat for one rather unusual shorebird. These are crab plovers. Despite their name, they're not a true plover, one of the largest families of wading birds. Crab plovers have no living relatives. In evolutionary terms, they are one of a kind. There are estimated to be 4,000 breeding pairs in Arabia. The United Arab Emirates on the northern coast hosts 2 major colonies. A third lies further south in Oman on Shagaf Island off Masirah. In summer, the islands feel the full force of the Indian monsoon winds driving in off the Arabian Sea. By July, most of this year's chicks have fledged. A few light grey juveniles remain among the adults. With breeding over for another year, many colony members disperse to a handful of feeding grounds elsewhere along Oman's coast. For those that remain, the shoreline provides ample chances to eat. There's a reason why it's called the crab plover. Its specialized bill is thicker than other wading birds, so it can puncture its hard-shelled prey. Further inland, on Masirah Island, the goat feast is now well underway. Strong, sharp beaks are one of the defining features of a raptor. Coupled with acute vision and powerful talons, the Egyptian vulture is well equipped to find and dismember large prey. Its long, narrow beak with a curved tip is perfect for removing every last scrap of flesh from the bones. There are 23 species of vulture in the world. The Egyptian is one of the most endangered. Oman is a stronghold for this curious scavenger. And this island is the second densest breeding site in the world. Up to 80 pairs are estimated to nest here. Vulture etiquette dictates a strict code of dining conduct. Large white adults with stronger beaks are top of the pecking order. Lighter brown subadults are next. The dark brown juveniles must wait their turn. It seems that this determined youngster did not get the memo. The older birds tackle the carcass with apparent calm. Occasionally, tempers flare over the prime cuts. Theft is rife, but today at least, retaliation is rare. As the vultures clean up the now scattered remains, the juveniles take their chances. One spots an opportunity, but the adult is too quick for it. Another juvenile is bolder and secures its prize with its foot. Challenging an adult to a tug of war takes guts. Scavenging ravens shadow the vultures, but appear to know better than to take on a hungry raptor. Those that have had enough take advantage of a rare stream of water to wash down their meals. Like most birds of prey, the vulture has a crop, a large pouch in its throat, where it can store extra food for later, a useful adaptation for this feast or famine lifestyle. Further south, thousands of seabirds fly low in formation over the Arabian Sea. Lines of cormorants are on their way to rest after a busy day of fishing. Like the flamingos, formation flight saves vital energy. Birds in front create a trail of turbulence. This can give the birds behind some extra lift, meaning they don't have to flap as much to maintain flight. The cormorants leapfrog over each other, taking it in turns to benefit. These are Socotra cormorants, a threatened species found only in Arabia. They live exclusively on the northeast and southern coasts and nest in just 13 known colonies in the world. The birds are highly gregarious and gather in enormous flocks, sometimes in their tens of thousands. Come late afternoon, they congregate offshore in huge rafts. Here, they wait until just before dusk, when they will come onto land to roost in the coastal cliffs. Away from the sea breezes, birds must find other ways to cool off. Great cormorants, cousins of the endemic socotrours, are mostly found inland. These two flutter their throats to increase evaporative heat loss, an action known as gular flutter. Most, if not all birds, do this to reduce severe heat stress. The other main strategy birds employ to control their body temperature is by opening their wings. This grey-headed kingfisher tilts its outstretched wings down, enabling air to circulate around its body and through its feathers. But nothing beats the heat better than a refreshing dip in the water. A pair of weaver birds takes the plunge on a hot afternoon. They're not the only bathers in this pool. A starling ducks its head, flicks its wings, and shakes its tail feathers to distribute the cooling water through its plumage. A bulbul soaks his feathers, then repeats this bathing ritual. Winged insects dart around the communal bathers. Dragonflies are among the world's most skilled aerial acrobats. Large, powerful flight muscles and ultra-fast wing beats enable them to hover like helicopters. Fore and hind wings move separately, giving the dragonfly exceptional flight control. They can turn 180 degrees in a tenth of a second. Brilliant blue damselflies skim over the water surface. When resting, they fold their wings over their abdomen, in contrast to the dragonfly that holds its wings out horizontally. As sunlight begins to fade over the rocky boulders of the desert, the first of the nocturnal aerial masters emerges from its daytime roost. A little owl. At just over 20 centimeters tall and weighing about 180 grams, this resident lives up to its diminutive name. This owl is not alone. Its mate waits among the rocks beneath their boulder home as they prepare for a night out hunting. The little owl is one of 10 species of owl found in Arabia. Their nocturnal lifestyles enable them to stay year-round, as they become active in the coolest part of the day. A leafless desert tree provides a decent lookout post to survey their territory from. But maybe it's not quite high enough. Coastal mountains provide daytime refuge to another nocturnal hunter, the only mammal capable of powered flight. Bats. These mouse-tailed bats stay hidden away during daylight. Measuring as little as 12 centimeters, half of the bat's total length is made up of a thin, mouse-like tail, which is how it gets its name. Tiny claws enable them to cling onto the cave walls as they too wait for darkness to fall. Colonies comprise of up to 100 individuals. Small splinter groups cluster in cavities and crevices in the rock. Just before dusk, the bats begin to get restless as they prepare for a night of hunting on the wing. Like most bats, the mousetail uses echolocation to navigate and detect prey. This biological sonar allows it to see using only sound. On takeoff, the bat emits a high-frequency chirp through its nostrils. How long it takes the sound to come back tells the bat how far away an object is. Inside the cave, this enables the bat to determine where the walls and any obstacles are. Contrary to the common saying, bats are not blind. Their eyesight is almost as good as ours, but their use of echolocation enables them to hunt in complete darkness. As night falls, the aerial pursuits begin. The mouse-tail bats seek out pools of water, first to quench their thirst, then to catch insects on the wing. Cooler nighttime temperatures help dissipate the heat generated by muscles in flight. As dawn approaches, the bats return to their roost. Landing backwards and upside down looks effortless, but it requires acrobatic skill. To flip itself over, the bat pulls one wing close to its body and extends the other. This shift in weight creates inertia, or a resistance to the change in motion. forcing the bat to somersault and land head under heels. The little owls too return to roost in the early hours of the new day. Come September, summer begins to loosen its hold over the Arabian landscape. The first of the winter migrants arrive from Europe and Asia. This sandpiper is one of the early birds. The end of the month signals the return of the first migratory raptors. A hungry western marsh harrier cruises silently over a lagoon. With a wingspan of more than 1.3 meters, it's the largest species of harrier in the world. The water below offers plenty of small waterfowl as prey. Towering above the harrier's potential victims, flamingos wade elegantly through the shallows in search of food. They use their feet to churn up the mud, disturbing their miniature prey. Flamingos feed with their heads upside down, filtering small invertebrates through their distinctive large bills. Unusual in birds, the lower jaw is thicker and stronger than the upper one. When upside down, of course, this allows the flamingo to move the lighter upper jaw with greater ease, as it filters its food through rows of horny plates. Flamingos are not the only avian filter feeders here. The northern shoveler sieves its food through comb-like projections on the edge of its wide, shovel-like bill, which gives the duck its name. This clever adaptation enables the bird to skim plankton, plant matter, and tiny crustaceans off the water's surface. The ducks are migratory, arriving from their breeding grounds in Europe and Asia to feed over the warmer Arabian winter. Some of the permanent lagoon residents are equipped with bills for precision hunting. An egret is on the lookout for fish. It too uses its feet to flush out its prey. The marsh harrier continues its search for food. A large northern shoveler may be too big, but a smaller duck would make a good meal. As the predator glides down, its keen eyes pick out a potential target, moving away from the safety of a group. The harrier is onto it. The duck dives to safety. The harrier can't take it under the water, but it is prepared to wait for its target to resurface. The word harrier comes from the Old English verb to harry, meaning to persistently harass. This harrier is living up to its name. Each time the duck comes up for air, its tormentor is waiting. This is a battle of endurance. How long can the duck hold its breath versus how long can the harrier harry? For the harrier to maintain its position above its target takes strength and effort. In the end, the duck is too quick. The harrier gives up. Grabbing a bite to eat shouldn't be this hard. Birds of prey are increasingly being drawn to Arabia's urban areas, where these man-made wetlands and rubbish dumps offer greater opportunities to feed. Come October, eagles become an increasingly common sight, as they too arrive for the winter. This greatest spotted eagle is one of 10 species found in Arabia. Its sharp eyes are able to pinpoint prey up to 90 meters away. On the shore, lapwings appear unconcerned by the predator in their midst. Like most aerial hunters, the sharp-taloned eagle poses little danger on the ground. Another perched high on a lookout tree is a different matter. A nervous lapwing mobs it in an attempt to chase it off, but the eagle remains unmoved. Like the marsh harrier, the greater spotted eagle hunts waterbirds and small mammals. But it also has a scavenger's taste for carrion. Young Egyptian vultures, like those hatched here in Oman, take around 4 years to become adults. The ugly ducklings may never become beautiful swans, but this youngster's transformation to its lighter adult plumage is now well underway. Egyptian vultures from breeding grounds further north are also arriving for the winter. Populations in Central Asia and Southern Europe are in drastic decline as the birds fall victim to poisonings, hunting, and power lines. Oman is one of the few places in the world where numbers appear to be stable. It's possible that the resident population of this endangered raptor may even be increasing. Further north in the United Arab Emirates, the waders are settling in for the winter months. Waterproofing their feathers is an important part of the flamingos' daily ritual. They use their bills to distribute oil from a gland at the base of their tails through their plumage. Flamingos spend 15 to 30% of the day preening, up to 3 times longer than most waterfowl. Resident numbers at Al-Wathba are swelled by migrating flamingos. Some may have flown more than 4,000 kilometers south to be here. The population can double over winter. More than 4,000 flamingos have been recorded at this one vital wetland. In spring, many of Arabia's aerial masters will depart once more. Migrants may go, but the resident birds, insects, and even a flying mammal will once again endure the searing summer temperatures of the Arabian Inferno.